Martin Scorsese's The Irishman was released on Netflix in late 2019, and the veteran filmmaker's picture garnered a whopping 10 Oscar nominations. The gangster film was the first and only in history to star Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci and Harvey Keitel, and it was the first time Scorsese and Pacino ever worked with each other. Now, the movie was highly anticipated for a variety of reasons, such as the fact that it was based on the #1 true crime bestseller, Charles Brandt's I Heard You Paint Houses, and much was made of Scorsese utilizing state-of-the-art CGI to digitally de-age his principal cast, which ballooned the budget to an astonishing $180 million plus. But there's two main reasons why audiences were really psyched for the movie, both interlinked. The first, of course, is that it was a gangster film directed by Martin Scorsese. Scorsese revolutionized the mafia film genre with movies like Mean Streets, Goodfellas and Casino, and most of his pictures, others including Gangs of New York and The Departed, deal with criminals and underworld figures. So for Scorsese to make another organized crime film after so long sold the film for so many of us in of itself. But then when you look at that incredible cast, Robert De Niro, the long-time Scorsese collaborator, making his first feature-length film with Scorsese in over 20 years. Harvey Keitel, another long-time Scorsese regular, making his first film with Scorsese in over 30 years. Joe Pesci, a fan favourite in Scorsese films like Goodfellas and Casino, coming out of retirement for one last epic gangster film. Add to that, what with the likes of De Niro and Pesci already starring in Scorsese flicks like Goodfellas, The Irishman felt like a natural evolution to Scorsese's crime resume with the actors, as it concerned older gangsters looking back on their lives, coinciding with the fact that the cast were now all aged like the characters they were playing. And then to have the huge bonus of screen legend Al Pacino in the film, his first film under Scorsese, with many film fans by then having been resigned to the possibility that the two cinema legends would never work with each other, despite being so perfectly suited to each other. Couple this with the fact that most of these actors hadn't had a hit in ages, being brought together by Martin Scorsese to give a send-off to their careers and the gangster genre itself, made The Irishman practically a dream movie, the final gangster film to star all these veteran actors. This is one of the key reasons why I was looking forward to the film so much, and had been obsessively following the movie for around 10 years. The sheer idea of a gangster movie directed by Martin Scorsese and starring De Niro, Pacino, Pesci and Keitel was pure absurdity. It existed solely in the realm of dreams, and yet it was happening. And it did happen in the end, and it was an epic, introspective crime saga, and funnily enough, perhaps the thing that was singled out the most for praise was the acting from the main cast, the whole reason why we wanted to watch it in the first place, with Al Pacino and Joe Pesci both being nominated for Oscars. It really was the dream movie, for me at least, but there was one scene in the film that I had been anticipating, that I was waiting for, because it would have been, in my opinion, the best scene in the entire film. It would have been the perfect scene, the ultimate scene of De Niro, Pacino, Pesci and Keitel, and it would have starred all four of the actors. Now, as anyone who's seen The Irishman will know, aside from Harvey Keitel, whose appearance was little more than a cameo, the other three actors are in the film in numerous scenes, as they play the main three characters. Every one of the four veterans, De Niro, Pacino, Pesci and Keitel, share screen time in the film, even if it's as little as a few seconds. De Niro has scenes with all the other three. Pesci has 2 scenes where he sits beside Harvey Keitel and one where he talks with Al Pacino. And Pacino, if you remember correctly, has one very short scene where his character shakes hands with Harvey Keitel during Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night. It's almost as if it was a conscious decision on the part of the filmmakers to ensure there was at least one scene where all the legendary actors shared the screen. Fans were spoiled by being able to see the De Niro-Pesci combo, which we saw in numerous films such as Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Casino, and seeing De Niro and Pacino on screen after the two's disastrous previous film Righteous Kill, and even though they filmed together before that, Michael Mann's Heat is a classic, they were hardly in the film together, and their movie before that, The Godfather Part 2, another classic, they weren't in the film together at all. Now it's great that the actors all had at least one scene with each other, but there was no scene where all 4 actors were on screen together. It might interest you to learn, however, there is such a scene where all 4 characters that the actors play do have one scene together, and it's an extremely important scene. And it's the only time De Niro's Frank Sheeran, Pacino's Jimmy Hoffa, Pesci's Russell Bufalino, and Keitel's Angelo Bruno are together. And in fact, the way it reads in the book, it's almost as if it was made with these Titanic actors in mind. So the scene that replaces it in the film is still a great scene. It's Frank Sheeran Appreciation Night, around 2 hours into the movie, and tensions are at an all-time high between Teamsters boss Jimmy Hoffa and the mob, with the mafia opposing Hoffa trying to rerun for the upcoming union elections. The mob have tried to get Hoffa to stand down, but in response, Hoffa makes all sorts of dangerous claims to the media, such as threatening to expose the Teamsters union's connection to organized crime, which has the mob uneasy. And during Frank Sheeran's Appreciation Night, attempts are made to get Hoffa to calm down and stand down. Previously sending Frank Sheeran to do the talking, mob boss Russell Bufalino himself finds a moment to talk to an irate Hoffa privately at the party, where the two try to come to an understanding. This is still an incredible scene, and it remains the only scene that Al Pacino and Joe Pesci have ever shared together. The acting on display is astonishing, from Pesci's reserved and composed Bufalino attempting to get Hoffa to understand the seriousness of the situation, in that he could very well be killed by the mob for the way he is going about things, to Pacino's Hoffa struggling to keep a bottle on his steaming temper. It's a brilliant scene, one of my favourites in the entire film, and it has a few of my favourite lines from the movie as well, like Bufalino's, "Some people think you might be demonstrating a failure to show appreciation." It is a fabulous scene in the film, but the book does it a little differently. The conversation is more brief and less heated, but it's set up in such a way that had Scorsese decided to film it this way, we would have seen all four actors in the same frame, and in such a way it would be like the final goodbye to all of them, and the gangster genre in general. The book's passage from the viewpoint of Frank Sheeran is as follows. There were about 60 people at Broadway Eddie's that night. The only ones who were at a table eating were Angelo, Russell, Jimmy, and me. The rest were at the bar. Trays of food kept coming out of the kitchen for the people at the bar. Jimmy was having spaghetti and meatballs, and I was having raviolis. The four of us were sitting in a row. When you wanted to talk, you had to lean out a little bit. Angelo was on the end next to Russell, and Jimmy was between Russell and me. Angelo didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything the whole time. They knew I was for Hoffa. I had Hoffa stickers all over my Lincoln. There was no prolonged conversation about what they were there for. I would imagine Jimmy knew why he was asked to be there, but I don't know. "What do you want to run for?" Russell asked. "It's my union," Jimmy said. "You only have 4 years to wait. You could run in 80. That would make sense." "I could run now. I've got the people with me." Jimmy wasn't being fresh, but he was being firm. Russell didn't say anything about the way Jimmy was campaigning, and the things Jimmy was going around saying about the alleged mob, but Jimmy had to know that such talk in public would be of concern to Russell. Jimmy knew about Joe Colombo and the publicity he brought, and Crazy Joe Gallo. Jimmy knew how all of Russell's problems began with the publicity from Appalachian. At least Jimmy should have been wondering what was causing Russell to go from being behind Jimmy and meeting with Fat Tony to help Jimmy in 1976, and now talking this way about things. "What are you running for?" Russell asked. "You don't need the money." "It's not about the money," Jimmy said. "I'm not letting Fitz have the union." Russell didn't say anything for a minute. He just ate in silence. People didn't say no to Russell, and he usually never had to ask twice. Jimmy said, "I'm going to take care of the people who've been fucking with me." Russell turned to Jimmy, and was now facing Jimmy and me both. "There are people higher up than me that feel you are demonstrating a failure to show appreciation." And then he said so softly that I had to read his lips, "For Dallas." Jimmy did not respond to that. Russell turned away and made some small talk with Angelo, and that meant the meeting was over. We finished eating. I sat there thinking that this was it. The people had talked amongst themselves, and Russell was now speaking for them, and they were against Jimmy running, and Russell was too. Tony Pro had won the battle for their hearts and minds. I had the feeling that it wasn't that Jimmy was running that was costing the support among his friends. It was the way he was running. I didn't know how serious it was for Jimmy until Jimmy and I were getting ready to leave. Russell took me aside and said, Some people have a serious problem with your friend. Talk to your friend. Tell him what it is. I'll do my best. You know yourself, Ross. He's tough to talk to. He's got no choice. Jimmy's pretty high up himself, I said. You're dreaming, my friend. If they could take out the president, they could take out the president of the Teamsters. It's a great scene, and the line about Dallas, by the way, alludes to the suggestion that the mob played a part in the murdering of JFK, as he and his brother were big opponents of Hoffa, and it was partly done as a favour for Jimmy Hoffa. Don't get me wrong, I love the scene between Pesci and Pacino in the film, but I can only imagine how awesome it would have been to see them arguing but being surrounded by Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro as well. Maybe if the filmmakers had chosen to go down this route, they could have even given a few lines of dialogue to Keitel and De Niro so we could have had all four interacting at the same time, something we've never had, and let's face it, we'll never see on the big screen. This was a part of the book that I was so excited for. I even made a video on it about a year or two before The Irishman came out called The Irishman, One Scene That Will Blow You Away. It was only when I got my hands on an early draft of the script a few months before the film came out, and I saw that the scene wasn't in there, that I lowered my expectations for this particular scene. And lo and behold, when the movie came out, the scene was a lot different to the book. Perhaps it was a conscious decision on the part of the filmmakers, as it may have come across as too self-conscious of the actor's pedigree for there to be a scene with all four of the veterans sitting side by side. Scorsese and editor Thelma Schoonmaker have reiterated time and again that The Irishman is intentionally stripped down and basic, so this may have been a part of that dogma. Either way, I would have loved to see this scene in the film, but I'm still perfectly happy with the substitute we got. So what do you think? Do you like the book version, or do you prefer the scene that we got in the final film? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.